Welcome to Lenovo Late Night IT, where industry insiders tell us what they tell their therapists. We like to ask the questions nobody's asking. Today's question, is ransomware a good thing? I'm here with Rahul Talang, one of the world's foremost experts in the economics of information security, privacy, and copyright infringement in digital media. Rahul is a professor of information systems and management at Carnegie Mellon University. He's also the author of Streaming, Sharing, Stealing, Big Data and the Future of Entertainment. A huge movie buff, he also wrote an academic paper on Bollywood films and piracy. Joining us as well is Renee Gutman. Renee has more than 25 years of experience managing technology risk for multinational corporations, and she was one of the first women in the cybersecurity industry overall. She was the CISO at Coca-Cola, Royal Caribbean, and Campbell Soup Company. That's soda, ships, and soup. Very alliterative, I like that. She created Time Warner's information security program and was AOL Time Warner's first chief privacy officer. She also nannied for a countess when she was 21. I dare you to top that. Seriously, you can't top that. She's the dopest. She's the GOAT. Welcome, Renee, Rahul. How y'all doing?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thanks for asking. No one ever asks me how I'm doing. I'm already liking you.
You're looking marvelous.
Oh yeah, flattery will get you everywhere. Rahul, you wrote this provocative article saying that ransomware was a good thing. So I have two questions for you. First, how much did the cyber criminals pay you to write that article? And second, what are you talking about?
I think one has to be a little bit careful. What I mean is good, I said it's good for consumers. I didn't say it's good for the firm. For last 20 years, we hear about cyber crime, data breaches, malware, virus, XYZ. That has been going on for last 20 years, and I think it will not end anytime soon. However, if you look at carefully, almost all the losses there happen to the consumer. If the data was breached, if malware happened, it's me actually who lost, not the firm. Typically, the way our economy works is that if I lose something, the firm actually takes care of me. So they will respond. So if you think about it, if something bad happens to me, the firm will say something is bad to my customer, and they'll say, okay, I'll make sure that doesn't happen.
Yeah, they'll change their practices.
Here you go.
Because if we get hurt, that's still bad for them.
Exactly.
But that's not been happening.
So we have so much data. They take the data and monetize it. They make the money from that. In the process, some data get breached. Some data get lost. Some sort of untoward accident happens. In that case, I am the one losing, not they. And they know they take care of me somewhat, but not completely. So they don't take care of my data with as much diligence that I will do that.
Well, especially if we keep showing up as customers.
Absolutely,
Right,
we
so
keep
the
showing up.
consequence maybe. So it sounds like your argument is they're finally the primary target.
And they're finally the primary target. Now their feet are held to the fire. So now you can imagine with that, you will expect that they will actually be more cautious about the security.
So then Renee, as someone who's been in a lot of these large firms and corporations, one, I'd love to know what's your take on Rahul's argument that companies have not taken cybersecurity as seriously because they haven't been the primary targets, but now with ransomware, they might step up their game. Do you buy that argument? Do you argue with it?
I think it's interesting. I think it's an interesting...
Is that a euphemism for you're wrong?
Pretty much.
Because I do think companies have taken it seriously because there have been mitigating controls put in place. I worked at a company and you know, a tape fell off a truck. Just imagine a tape falling off a truck today.
Like a tape full of data.
Full of data.
Okay.
You know, that's what used to happen in the early days,
Just
right?
fell
Tapes
off
would
the
fall
truck.
off trucks,
Yeah.
you know? And that's sort of a fine line that creates that. Well, do I report, don't I report? Because you have actually lost control. And so that's where a lot of the teeth gnashing and companies now have to start making decisions about whether to report or not. So I do think a lot of companies, even today, I mean, people don't report. We know that, so I don't know that it's a big shift. And I think that companies have been responsible. It's just that now they are more the focus of attention.
So when I think of ransomware, it feels like old school mafia protection racket. It's like, oh, that's a nice CRM you got there. Be a shame if something happens to it. That's a nice water infrastructure operating plan you got there. You want it back, you pay me. and I see it from the outside through reporting, and it sounds terrifying every time. Like a huge deal, and cities stop working, businesses shut down, and I guess they're paying in a lot of cases. But how big of a threat is ransomware? What do you both think about that? Because to me, it's just an increasing and horrifying prospect.
So yes, it's a big deal. Okay. My feeling is that over time, the firms will figure out how to cope with that. So it will kind of reduce. The second thing is that currently, we actually don't have good numbers on how many firms are getting affected by ransomware. So a lot of time, the firm get a ransomware attack, nothing gets disclosed. Right. We don't have data, we don't have information, we don't have any idea. So right now, it's all speculation. Depending on who you read, somebody will say, okay, 40% of the attacks are ransomware. Somebody will say it's a minor thing. So all we know is that we see that the things are getting worse, but we also know that they will get better.
What are your thoughts, Renee, on how serious the threat
I think it's a big deal, and I think it's a big deal because it really does not only impact the victim, but it may impact the ecosystem. I don't believe that mankind can change their spots. So whatever we used to do, and maybe run the risk of getting caught, now we have a better chance of doing it not being caught. But we can't fundamentally change our spots.
Okay. What have we learned from some of the successful ransomware attacks in terms of how to better defend, how to better report, how to communicate? Any lessons from this?
It's a very, very tricky question because the moment the ransomware attack happens, yes, you are basically can't move an inch forward. That is, you're frozen, you can't access your data, you can't access your computer. Now, what choice do you have? The choice is either you pay or you do something else. So, the lesson actually is before something happens. But before that, you can plan. You can kind of imagine, like you imagine, that if I get hit by the ransomware, what will I do? What is my escape route? And I think that will play a role in how do we respond to that. Because once you get hit, then the question is, should I pay or should I go to FBI or should I go to a newspaper? Yeah. Those are not good choices.
I think that's actually a key thing. I mean, we have been talking things like business resiliency and business continuity and having a good backup and, what do you restore first and all of those things. And the business, I don't have time for that today. I don't.
Response. I don't have time
I don't, what to restore first, to make these decisions up front, to say that team's going to be responsible for recovering X if something bad happens. Your team is going to be responsible for Y. We're going to have project managers and treat it very seriously.
When I think about fire drills,
yes,
we practice for the disaster. The bell rings, you go to your meeting place in the garage, or you have practice the escape routes, make sure the fire escapes actually work. Are companies practicing ransomware attacks? Are they simulating? We've lost all of our systems. Let's make sure those backups we said we've been making actually exist and see if we can get the business back online.
How do you take care of the ransomware attack after it happens? How do you recover? It's not so simple. Easy thing could be that, okay, I will not pay the ransom.
Right, yeah.
And
don't let the terrorists win. I like that. It's very tough.
But that means that if you don't pay the ransom, you should be able to function with somewhat competence.
Yeah.
And that requires that the data that they have encrypted, you are able to replace that.
Right.
So you should have the backup, as she mentioned, that you should have the backup, that somehow you're able to replace the data with the backup and get to the function. Now, to do the fire drill is not so easy. So you can do short scale, but not at the large scale. The simple fact is that there's so much data that the firms have.
There's no way to simulate your entire company going down. 50,000 workstations, right? Well, let's do a fire drill around that. So let's just kill all 50,000 workstations and see if it takes us more than 9 days to recover.
What if you did it randomly to the employees you didn't like?
I don't know if that's a ransomware response.
That's why I'm not a CISO. Okay.
You know what? But you do bring up a good point. Because philosophically, I do believe that you do better training your employees, because now it's a different topic, and you use carrots and not sticks.
Okay.
So the major reason, or one of the most prominent way somebody gets a ransomware attack is somebody clicks on the phishing email.
Yes.
So employee clicks on email, download something. You want to stop them from doing that, right? So you can simulate that. So the question is that if somebody clicks on that, that will give you a signal that this guy is not paying attention.
There are things called lures, okay? And there are
Phishing.
things,
Ah, it's called
phishing lures.
Oh my goodness, I'm an idiot.
So if I send you an email that says we're moving offices, right? You're coming back after COVID.
Okay.
Here you go.
Your offices are changing locations, and click here for your new office assignment.
Yeah.
I bet you people will click. So at that point, you look and you see, okay, well, who commonly clicks? And maybe you want to, do some more advanced training. To your point, delete their computer, but you don't do that.
No,
you
that's a
don't
very
do that.
aggressive
That's
response.
very aggressive.
Well, you said carrots, not sticks.
And
so what's
I
the
do
carrot?
believe that.
Yeah.
I do believe that, because I have found if you say, look, when in doubt, report.
Okay.
All right? So I won't penalize you for reporting.
So insulting people, not a great strategy.
I'm not so sure.
I mean, if you think about it, this whole phishing thing has been going on for last 20 years.
Yeah.
So we know that the phishing email should not be clicked. But now the consequence of that is enormous.
So you can actually make it a bit competitive and say, okay, well, that unit consistently does better than that unit. So you can actually create a little bit more of a gamification or a different approach to it, to the point where people are like, I got it.
Right.
I used to get texts all the time. You couldn't fool me. You couldn't fool me.
People are proud of themselves. Yeah.
With this kind of simulation, you can actually test what strategy or what carrots actually work. So you might try thing A, and you see how people respond. Then you might try thing B, and then see how people respond. That way you get an idea that what is clicking. What do I say that is actually internalized by my employee? So that is a good tool that way.
When it comes to cybersecurity, there's a pretty big knowledge gap between people in the tech world and the general public. To get a better sense of how wide that gap really is, we sent a team out to the streets of New York City and asked random strangers what they know about cybersecurity. Here's what we found out.
All right, so we just want to get a little bit of background demographic, just basic information. Where are you from? What town are you from? What was your first car? What was the name of your best friend? What's your mother's maiden name?
I feel like this is getting a
It
little...
doesn't matter. I've already stole your entire identity. Check your bank account. Our topic today is, in fact, cybersecurity. What do you do?
I work as a cybersecurity consultant.
That's bullshit.
No, I'm dead ass. Am I allowed to cuss?
I don't know. So first off, what is cybersecurity?
Oh, we're starting with me. Okay.
Yeah, because she'll give it away.
Making sure that we're safe. We're so exposed now by giving passwords and this online, and it's very easy for people to access our information. So we want to make sure that it's safe.
You know what ransomware is?
Oh, yes.
What's ransomware?
Ransomware is when they steal your data and make you pay to get it back.
Oh, so you write them on your computer? That is literally the worst place to write your password. I'm going to list some devices, and you tell me if you think they can be hacked. Okay? Phone.
Yes.
Coffee maker.
Yes.
Pacemaker.
Yes.
Houseplant.
100%.
Garage door opener.
Yes, I think so.
That's amazing. You got it 100% right. How did you know?
That's what it all sounds like, things you can break into.
As a cybersecurity expert, what worries you the most?
Since COVID has hit and everyone has actually moved to like a more obviously a virtual environment, ransomware hits have been increasing, and everyone's also like moving to cloud. I feel like in general there can be better awareness about like phishing and stuff like that. And people definitely don't know enough. Also, like all the old people just always click on that type of stuff.
Are you saying I'm old?
No, I did not say that.
Hypothetically, if I stole all the information on your computer, everything, all the files, everything, and $500.
I don't own a computer, I'm sorry.
Oh man, this is tough. Do you have a phone?
Yeah.
What is this thing? Is this a... Do I... Flip it? Flip it?
All right, what did y'all think of our Tech Walk video?
I was surprised that people knew quite a bit. I thought they will be, kind of, what is this, ransomware.
Yeah,
People knew.
It was a great definition of ransomware.
Yeah.
And I love the guy was like, can this be hacked? Yes. Can this be hacked?
Yeah,
yes. And
I
he's
know.
Like, they all sound like things you could break
I
into.
think they
But
understood
the house
word
plant.
ransom.
The house plant, he was just saying yes. It was like the multiple choice answer. You just go down the same column.
I
that
think
was
a house plant could hack you, but I'm kidding.
I was like, what do you know? See, when you make a joke about security, I take it seriously.
I know. People put my phone number, when I'd call into their okay, it's Renee calling, and they were like, literally, do I pick it up? Do I? Why was she calling me? What
'cause
could
they
this
assume something
be?
bad
Oh,
happened.
absolutely.
Bad reputation. Bad
Absolutely.
reputation.
You gotta get a
right?
burner phone just to call people, so they don't freak out and they actually answer. What did you notice
Exactly.
about the video? Anything? stood out?
I'm not surprised.
Yeah.
That's why, our date was going to happen, right? Because you read newspapers. I knew right away I liked you, or maybe you don't read newspaper, but you go online. I'm not surprised.
Yeah.
I'm not surprised.
I was surprised to just stumble across a cybersecurity consultant.
I was
on
too,
the
but she
street.
swore, and I was like, okay, she's a cybersecurity person.
She kept it very real. That was New York and cybersecurity
At its finest.
fitting together. Yes. Do you pay the ransom?
That's above my pay grade.
Really? Who answers that question? Is that the CEO answers that question?
I think the company does.
The company,
I think the
okay.
company decides that up front, and they
Are
take
you in
a
the
position.
meeting where that decision gets made?
Generally.
Yeah.
But I haven't been there, right?
Yeah.
We've had this conversation,
Yeah.
and I talked to, and even the research says a lot of companies do pay,
Absolutely.
right?
Would you pay, Rahul?
That's a really difficult question. Okay, I'll give you a simple analogy. When there's a hijacking of an airplane, okay, the US government policy was we will not pay ransom to anybody.
Yeah, I saw it in all the movies. Yeah.
Exactly.
And those are factual.
But
events.
I also know that the other governments, other countries, even though they have the resolve, when the actual thing happens, they may not do it. So I feel ransomware has the same flavor, that you kind of believe that you should not do it, but then you say, if I don't do it, I lose this. Am I willing to bear that brunt, or I can get away by paying 5 million, 10 million, whatever. What is the ethical part? What is the unethical part? What is the economic part? That's a really difficult question. I mean, if I look at the ransomware, our thought or focus is how much ransom are you paying? Right. But the moment you go down for 3 days, 4 days, the losses percolate all the way. Your customers, your suppliers, everybody is suffering. And we don't measure that. So again, the way I think about
Well, then it must not be a problem if we're not measuring it.
that is one issue that people talk, that
Yeah.
hide it under the carpet.
Yeah.
But that is what I'm saying, that as we become more and more IT, our network, the more and more we are going to be affected by any disruption.
I was talking to somebody who was telling me that in healthcare, they might do something in the hospital. Well, now you're not conducting surgeries, right? So I think there's a life and limb component
The
to this
cost
thing
of
now.
not paying.
And where I get most afraid is the crossover into safety and people's perception of safety.
Do you think, putting your business hats on, is ransomware a good business model?
Suppose I breach you and steal your data.
I don't like it, I don't like you, but keep going with the analogy.
I understand, but how do I make money from that? I sell your credit card for $1, $2, whatever. So, my ability to make money from all this activity is kind of stretched over a period of time, and I don't even know. On the other hand, if I have a ransomware, and I say, if you don't pay me 5 million, I will not decrypt. So you can imagine, what do? I can make the money right now, right then.
I go back to old school burglary, right? If you stole a bunch of art and goods from someone's house, then you got to fence it somewhere. You got to find a secondary person. You got to this chop shop over here, and that could take, like you said, time. And it's complex and probably exposes you to more risk the more other people you communicate with trying to fence these stolen goods. Or you can just sell it back to the homeowner. right? You're stealing and then selling back to the people
Absolutely.
you stole from.
That's easier.
Which is a simpler business model for sure.
Absolutely.
How do you, Renee, tell quote unquote good guys from bad guys in this world we're talking about where the boundaries seem to be shifting? You know, you have vulnerabilities and markets around those. You've got tools and markets around that. You've got employees who are making innocent mistakes. You've got companies who are trying to weigh ethically and financially to pay or not to pay. Just as a person, how do you navigate that? It seems real hard.
For me, the biggest concern that I have is still safety. I think when those lines are crossed, that's what really worries me the most. Okay, the money part I get, but the safety part, you know, really does worry me. And it's hard because even the good guys that will call you and say, listen, we found X and, you know, we're letting you know. But it's a product vendor, okay? And then you struggle with even, do I believe you or are you making it up to sell me something? My children think that I'm like a wildly paranoid person, and I try not to be all the time, but it's a little, I don't know that I have a better answer than that. It's just difficult.
Because technology is everywhere now, all kinds of places are getting hit with ransomware attacks that don't have the resources. I think of my in-laws, you know, who get sucked into scams and malware things, and they would not know what to do if they lost all their stuff. They would call me, actually. I'm the CISO in the family. And I think of small governments, I think of nonprofit organizations. How do we prepare folks who don't have the budget financially or technologically to withstand or recover from something like this? What might work there?
The government has, you know, put out the CISA.gov, I think is the name of the site, right? And I read some of it last night, and I thought, man, this is a good list.
What is on this government website?
It's a lot about ransomware. It's about how to protect against ransomware, and I mean, there's more advice out there than you can shake a stick at.
Rahul, what are you seeing or hoping for in terms of distributing some of this preparation and protection to the smaller end of the spectrum, whether we're talking small businesses, nonprofits, folks who don't have the financial resources to handle a big ransomware attack?
I think the easiest solution is don't fall for the phishing email. Really, you don't even have to do very elaborate thing, endpoint protection, but don't fall for the phishing email.
It's like a mantra, don't fall for the phishing email. Is that the primary way in for a ransomware attack?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, that is the dominant way.
Yeah. What are there any others of note that people should be aware of?
People are funny, right? So there's this thing called romance schemes, right? Where I get into a relationship, an online relationship with somebody and never meet him, right? But I get to know him, he gets to know me, and suddenly he's got a legal issue, right? And so maybe he's the love of my life, supposedly, and I send him money, you know? So I think, you know, it's really hard.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, how do you not be human? I can be a paranoid human, but it's hard not to be human at all.
Absolutely. I appreciate that caution and that note and that empathy. Thanks for joining us in our garage for another episode of Lenovo Late Night IT. That's all the time we have for tonight, though Rahul is clearly happy to keep talking regardless of the limits. Thank you to our guests, Rahul Talang and Renee Gutman. I'm Baratunde Thurston, and I'll see you next time.